Okay, so you know me and my Tupac thing. I've decided to look through some lyrics by Tupac, and again, it's the Me Against the World playlist, and it's called Shed So Many Tears. And like you said, I'm a massive Tupac fan. I've said with Tupac, what you get is you get really profound lyrics. You get an emotion which is very, very rich. And as we go through the Shed So Many Tears, it reminds me of Kendrick Lamar's You from the To Pimp a Butterfly. So I'll be drawing some analogies. Now, please bear with me because it's been some time since I've explored the lyrics. Okay, but obviously Tupac starts with the lyrics. He goes, you know how Tupac with his gruffy voice, back in elementary, I've thrived on misery. And then you get some sense in that first verse. You get some sense of his early childhood, about how he had always been troubled. And we know that sometimes when people have experienced traumatic experiences, they have a primed stress pathway called the HPA axis. And it's just a stress pathway where they produce a chemical called cortisol. And traumatic events like sexual abuse, like a very traumatic childhood could lead to an overactive stress pathway, which then becomes a risk for developing depression in future. Okay, now I'll go to the second verse. No, sorry, back to the first verse. It talks about how Tupac sees his friend murdered. Now, in psychiatry, we often mention predisposing factors, which are the traumatic early childhood events, and we can look at precipitating factors. So why is someone displaying depression now? Now, in this particular first verse, we see what's precipitated Tupac's character being low in mood. And in the second verse, there's some graphic, very colorful description of what I would call depressive symptomatology. So I'll give you some. On the third line of the verse 2, it says, "And F the world, cause I'm cursed. I'm having visions of living here in a hearse." And again, we know that with depressive people, they sometimes not only think negative thoughts, but they might also have negative visual imagery where they basically think in pictures. They see an image of them dead. They might see themselves at the end of a cliff. And sometimes this could be a risk factor for suicidal. But what's interesting, he says, I know my destiny is hell. Where did I fail? So there's some massive guilt. There's a sense that he's going to hell. That might be because of his religious beliefs in that sense. So Tupac's character is displaying what we would say are depressive symptoms. And in the third verse, it's obvious because he says, "I'm suicidal, so don't stand near me." And there's almost this sense that his self-destructiveness will be transmitted to people around him, loved ones. And he basically describes some graphic things here. So I'll give you an example. "And though my soul was deleted, I couldn't see it. I had my mind full of demons trying to break free. They planted seeds and they hatched, sparking the flame inside my brain like a match, such a dirty game." Now, what's interesting is, again, some very vivid description, what we in psychiatry call nihilistic thoughts. Now, when people are depressed, sometimes they have overvalued ideas or delusions where they believe that a part of them is dead, their intestines or their brain. And these are very, very nihilistic thoughts which you basically get in people who are depressed. And in the fourth verse, again, we get a sense why he's depressed, because he talks about the environment where he sees a lot of homicides, he sees drive-bys, and he sees little kids dying, and how he feels broken-hearted. He talks about his future not being bright. So with depression, Beck spoke about how people have negative thoughts about themselves, about their relationship with others, and about the future. So he has negative thoughts about the future too. But also, what's also interesting in this verse, or in these verses, is how Tupac, he's displaying what is known as an overactive default mode network. That's a possibility, and we wrote about this in Kendrick's You article. That's where when depressed people, sometimes they're in this loop where they're thinking about themselves, they're ruminating about negative things, and there's a particular part in the brain, so areas like the posterior cingulate, gyrus, and the parietal cortex, where those parts of the brain are active, and so they find it very difficult to break out of their negative thoughts about themselves. So it's very, very negative, and it's often about self. You understand? And he leaves it here saying, I'm falling to the floor, begging for the Lord to let me into heaven's door, which I think is very, very sad. But it gives you an illusion about how depressed Tupac's character is. Now, how does it relate to the U track? In the U track, which we commented on in our Lancet Psychiatry piece, this is a piece by Kendrick Lamar in the To Pimp a Butterfly album, where Kendrick's character is a successful rapper who is crying in a hotel room because he has survivor's guilt. He's one of the few successful people that has made it out of the hood, and he feels very, very guilty about it. And you basically hear Kendrick rapping the verses like he's crying. You also hear the clinking of glasses, so it's obvious that he's drinking from an alcohol bottle. And sometimes people, when they're depressed, they're more likely to abuse alcohol. So I just think they're two interesting, verses and lyrics from my two favorite rappers. Tupac, if you want to say in the past or in the future, and Kendrick, whom I see as a new Tupac. Thank you.